My mother was a courtesan, who used her hard-earned money to support my father's studies and imperial examinations. 5 years later, my father passed the highest level of the exams and was granted a marriage to a princess by the emperor. Yet, in the imperial court, he refused the marriage at the risk of his life and instead held a grand, lavish wedding to marry my mother. The princess was displeased. 3 days later, my mother, disheveled and humiliated, died at the mouth of the alley. Half a year later, the princess married my father as she wished. She didn't know that this was the beginning of her misfortune. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. The day my mother died happened to be my 5th birthday. Father took me out early in the morning, bought plenty of fruits and pastries on the street, and even picked out a beautiful hairpin for mother. He said that mother had a difficult labor when giving birth to me and nearly lost her life, so he wanted me to give this hairpin to her in the evening. I grinned and agreed. The hairpin had a lotus pendant, which mother loved the most. She would surely be delighted to see it. Father also asked me many questions, like whether I had heard any gossip at school recently or if anyone had spoken ill of mother. Seeing me nod, he asked anxiously, "Does mother treat you well?" "Mother treats me well. I like mother," I replied. Father's tense expression relaxed a great deal, and he said to me softly, "Your mother is a woman with a hard fate, but she is also the purest person in this world. You must listen to her and be filial to her for the rest of your life." I was just about to say yes when a servant from the mansion stumbled over. His eyes panicked. Madam has died at the alley entrance." My father paid no attention to me. Scrambling forward almost on all fours, he fell, scraping his face and hands, then stumbled back to his feet and kept running. I cried, chasing after him and calling out "Daddy," but he didn't even look back, pushing through the crowd at the alley entrance. My father, usually so refined, who had never once raised his voice, lost all composure. His manners and upbringing shattered to pieces. Get away, don't look, he screamed with heart-wrenching desperation. Tearing off his outer robe in a frantic motion to drape it over my mother, then held her clumsily as he hurried back toward the house. He couldn't stop sobbing and weeping, like a stray dog with no home to return to after losing its family. My father forbade me from seeing my mother's corpse. He locked himself in with her, and everyone said he had gone mad. 5 days later, he emerged from the room, emaciated from having consumed not a drop of water, and methodically prepared for my mother's funeral arrangements. Father had grown much thinner, yet he appeared even more handsome. On the day my mother's funeral was held, the princess arrived at our home adorned in heavy makeup and dressed with dignified elegance. She was exceptionally beautiful, radiant as the morning glow, known as the foremost beauty of Chang'an. Despite her noble status and the innate arrogance evident in her every word and gesture, the moment she laid eyes on my father, she instantly restrained herself, leaving only the inexplicable, fluttering demeanor of a young maiden. My father handled the situation flawlessly, and even the occasional polite, ordinary remark from him would cause the princess's lips to curl into an unceasing smile. That night, after seeing the princess off, my father gripped my shoulders, knelt down, and looked up at me, asking, "Did you get a clear look at the third princess's face?" I nodded. I was still young then, but for the first time, I understood hatred. Father's expression remained unchanged. "In the future, I will peel off this face and make it the drumhead of your rattle. Would you like that?" I shook my head, smiling sweetly. "No need for father to give it to me. I can make it myself." Father smiled with satisfaction. After the funeral of my mother, father returned to his post at the Hanlin Academy. Wearing the same crimson official robe, he always looked far more distinguished than others. Every day when father returned home, his clothes carried the fragrance of the third princess's garments. Half a year later, the princess was with child, causing an uproar in the court, yet father remained as composed as ever, teaching me to read and write. When a woman is with child, no matter how loose the clothing, the signs will eventually show, and someone is bound to notice. If this were to get out, it would cause a citywide scandal. The rumors of the third princess's improper conduct before marriage spread both inside and outside the palace, and even the censorate submitted a memorial. That night, someone dressed as a palace maid knocked on the door of the top scholar's residence. In the dead of night, I heard a woman sobbing and crying. "My reputation is completely ruined, yet you still haven't asked my father to marry me. Do you want me to die? Pei Lang, get rid of this child, and I will marry you. You wouldn't want to wear your wedding dress with a big belly, would you? There will be more children in the future, but a grand wedding only happens once." "I'm scared," her father replied. "Scared of what?" Do you want the emperor to find out it was me? If he finds out, what will become of my career, princess? Your fate and mine are tied together. If I fall, you fall with me. I have no parents to worry about, and I can live with or without an official title. I'm doing this for your future. But how do I explain it to father? The third princess began to cry. He will beat me to death. The father's voice was almost seductive. Get rid of this child. Tell His Majesty that the child's father is a servant from your princess manor. Then, if you say you want to marry me, although the emperor will be angry, he will agree. Not only that, but he will also promote me to compensate. If my rank rises, won't you benefit too? With sweet words. Father coaxed the third princess into compliance in just a few sentences. Abortion is harmful to the body. The next day, the princess's maid came to the door in tears, saying the princess had been bleeding non-stop after taking the medicine, begging father to go see her. Father dismissed the princess's maid, using the excuse that there were too many eyes and ears around. 5 days later, His Majesty summoned father and forcibly arranged a marriage for him, also promoting him in rank and title. Outside, everyone said that father had picked up a heavily worn shoe, but I knew that this rumor was spread by father himself. The third princess had once sent someone to deliver a worn shoe to mother during father and mother's wedding, mocking mother for having worked in the flesh trade, calling her a woman of easy virtue who was unworthy of being the wife of the top scholar. Father intended for her to suffer. Bit by bit, the same humiliation she had once inflicted upon mother. On the day of father's wedding, the arrangements were hastily done, and even the princess's wedding dress was borrowed overnight from the eldest princess. She had originally set her sights on mother's wedding dress, which father had commissioned a year in advance, working tirelessly while studying and copying books to sell, all to give mother a surprise after passing the imperial exams. The pearls on mother's wedding dress were all gathered by father himself, diving into the sea alongside pearl divers. After the princess expressed her desire for mother's wedding dress, father's expression changed. He smiled faintly, yet not quite. Is the princess comparing herself to a prostitute? The third princess thought her father was merely flirting with her and, feeling both shy and annoyed, gave him a push. I am a princess, how could I be compared to such a lowly woman? The chill in her father's eyes deepened. Indeed, there is no comparison. The princess thus abandoned the idea of wearing my mother's wedding dress. Perhaps she finally remembered that half a year ago, when she first saw my mother, she had spat and insulted her. How dare someone as lowly as you wear the same color as me? She ordered her attendants to strip my mother of her clothes. If not for my father's timely arrival, my mother would have nearly died of shame and fury that day. During the wedding ceremony, father placed my mother's memorial tablet right in the center, making the third princess so angry her eyes turned red. Father held his head, saying weakly, I dream of Yaonyang every day, and my heart is uneasy. Besides, you are the second wife after all, it's nothing to pay respects to her. Just do it for me. A flicker of struggle passed through the third princess's eyes. If she were from a respectable family, that would be one thing, but she was born a lowly woman. I am a princess, how dare she deserve my beau? With his dark hair and red lips, father's long, delicate eyes gradually lowered, a faint flush spreading at the corners, a rare and beautiful face. The princess was stunned by her father's troubled gaze. The hall was so quiet that I could actually hear the sound of the princess swallowing. Father's slender fingers rested on his own lean waist, where a russet red silk ribbon was wrapped once around his jade-like fingers. Making his already fair skin appear even more radiant and captivating, he spoke self-mockingly. I had thought the princess truly liked me, admired me, and wanted to spend a lifetime with me, but it turns out it was nothing more than that. The princess only saw me as a dispensable plaything, indifferent to my life or death. The wandering Taoist priest she summoned said that Yaonyang harbored resentment, which is why she clings to me and refuses to move on to the afterlife. He sighed softly, his fingers applying slight force as he untied the red silk ribbon at his waist. His strong waist was instantly concealed by the loosened wedding robe. Father took off his wedding robe, pursed his lips, and threw it to the ground. If you refuse to bow to her, then let this marriage be called off, whether I die sooner or later. I am bound to die. If that's the case, just let Yaonyang take me to the underworld. Why trouble yourself to become a widow? The princess hurriedly rushed to pick up his wedding robe, tugging at his clothes, sobbing, Lord Pei, how can you say such things? You are breaking my heart. How could I not care about your life or death? Since it must be so, I will bow to her. Please put on your robe and don't be angry anymore. Only then did father put on his wedding robe and perform the ceremony with her. Afterward, He used both coercion and persuasion to force the princess to offer tea before mother's memorial tablet. And only then did he allow her to return to her room. That night, father added a sleeping drug to the tonic meant for the princess's miscarriage recovery. He held me in his arms and sat outside the ancestral hall, where mother's memorial tablet was placed, for the entire night. I asked father why he wouldn't go in. Father patted my head. Under the moonlight, his face was as pale as a ghost, yet his dark eyes were moist. He gave me a pained smile. Be good, Yao Yao. Go offer some incense to mother for me. Father is afraid. I asked him in confusion. What is father afraid of? Mother loved us both so much. Even if she became a ghost, she would still protect you and me. I tugged at father's hand, pulling him toward the ancestral hall. Father, don't be afraid of mother. Mother loves you. She would never hurt you. Father's trembling hand slipped, and he fell to the ground. He crouched over the threshold of the ancestral hall, weeping in suppressed sobs. His slender shoulder blades arched beneath the red wedding robes, like a dying crane or a swan with a broken neck, crying out in agony as he lay on the ground. Father has no face to see your mother again. The next morning, the princess asked where father's wedding robes had gone, why they were nowhere to be seen. Father calmly continued his meal and responded indifferently. I accidentally fell when getting up in the middle of the night, and it got dirty, so I threw it away. I have a cleanliness obsession, as you know, princess. Although the third princess was somewhat displeased, she didn't ask further. That wedding gown had been torn apart and burned by father last night. In front of the blazing fire, father, dressed in white as pure as snow, had his face illuminated by the bright flames. I saw his twisted, disgusted expression, like a snarling vicious dog lurking in the darkness, ready at any moment to bite through the fragile neck of an enemy. The princess sighed. It's a pity that Father Emperor thinks I've brought shame upon him, so this wedding was hastily arranged. I only get to have this once in my lifetime. Pei Lang. She looked at her father with a pleading gaze, the unspoken hint in her eyes all too clear. Back when father married mother, he was just a penniless scholar, making a living by gathering herbs in the mountains and copying books for wealthy gentlemen. Mother was a famous courtesan in Suzhou, and many noble sons would spend fortunes just to catch a glimpse of her. But she didn't want the wealth and status of high-born suitors, she wanted sincerity. She took out all her savings and gave them to her father, asking him to buy her freedom. Her mother was actually afraid deep down, worried that her father would take the money and run, abandoning her. She was gambling, betting on whether her father truly cared for her. Her mother's sister had once given all her silver to her beloved, asking him to buy her freedom. But in the end, the man ran off with the money. Unable to bear the blow, her mother's sister threw herself into the lake and drowned. Mother was more fortunate than her sisters. She bet on the right man. Father, a poor scholar, had nothing but a belly full of useless knowledge and a sincere heart. The white silk mother had prepared to hang herself with was never used. Instead, father cut it into several pieces, spread each one out, and painted mother's face on them with his brush. In father's paintings, mother looked vivid and beautiful, like a fairy from the heavens. After father redeemed mother, the two of them simply held a modest wedding ceremony, with heaven and earth as their witnesses. Mother was concerned about her status. She was unwilling to invite others, fearing embarrassment. Though she never spoke of it, father understood in his heart. Later, when father passed the imperial examination and secured an official position with a salary, he saved money, intending to restore mother's dignity and hold a proper wedding ceremony again. He knew that even though mother never mentioned it, she desired it in her heart. Father never intended to hold such a grand wedding with a lavish dowry procession. He feared more than anyone that mother would become the subject of gossip. But at that time, the princess dug up mother's past as a courtesan and spread the word everywhere. Father nearly lost his official position because of it, and mother became the laughingstock of the entire capital. They all said mother was shameless and lowly. How dare a woman of such low status aspire to be an official's wife? Completely forgetting her origins, the third princess even led her circle of close friends, along with their servants and maids, to gather outside our residence every day, deliberately hurling vulgar insults for mother to hear. Father held a grand wedding to tell mother, and to tell all the onlookers in the capital, that the so-called lowly woman they spoke of was the love of his heart. The best of all, he spent all his savings to hold a new wedding for mother at the peak of the slander, with the finest wedding gown. Even the mandarin ducks entwining on the wedding quilt were sketched by father himself, and the large pearls on the phoenix crown and ceremonial robes were personally gathered and strung by him. No one had expected father's actions. The third princess was so enraged that she shut herself indoors. Those who had mocked mother fell silent. and then began to curse father even more viciously, saying he was blinded by lust. They both despised and looked down on their mother, yet at the same time, they envied her more than anyone else. The third princess brought up the wedding now only to hint that she wanted father to arrange another one for her in the future, a wedding that would surely be even more extravagant than mother's. But she miscalculated. How could father possibly agree? Her eager gaze fell on father's face. He set down his chopsticks and gave a gentle smile. Glorious, is it? The smile at the princess's lips froze. Father picked up the handkerchief on the table and gently wiped the corner of her mouth, his tone airy. My princess, your loss of virtue before marriage is known to all. People outside say you're a shameless tramp. Holding another wedding would only make them laugh at you again, wouldn't it? The princess's eyes reddened, tears slowly welling up. Father clicked his tongue lightly, a hint of a smile in his eyes. Why cry? I happen to like shameless women like you. Your skills in bed are far better than those lowly brothel prostitutes. Men enjoy this kind of thing, you should take pride in it. The princess threw herself into his arms, sobbing. You're talking nonsense. Father's lips stiffened for a moment, then relaxed as he said with forced patience, all right, I know you're upset, but wasn't it you who had the maid drug me? Why cry now? When you have a child in the future, I'll hold a grand celebration for you. You'll be the center of attention, and they'll all envy you. No one will dare say a word then. The princess sat up, sobbing, and touched her belly. Her grievances resurfacing. The imperial physician said it was a boy I lost. You didn't even come to see me that day. I nearly died from the pain. Father spoke lightly, a cheerful smile on his face as he coaxed her. Wasn't I doing this for your own good? His Majesty has just appointed me to fill the vacancy in the Ministry of War. Hurry and bear me another son. I'll secure a noble title for him in court, and in the future, everything will be his. Only then did the princess cheer up. She ordered the imperial physician to carefully examine her and prescribe medicine so she could soon bear a child for father. She took me into the room while father was away, pinching my eyelids with her long nails and pulling out my eyelashes. She said my eyes looked just like my mother's, and that I would surely grow up to be a promiscuous slut just like her, sooner or later. She swore she would gouge out my eyes and feed them to the dogs. It hurt so much, but I didn't cry. I stood there obediently in front of her, enduring her abuse and curses, forcing back the tears that welled up in my eyes. I refused to cry in front of her. One day, I would make her cry in front of me, weeping and wailing in agony. At the very least more painfully than I ever had. One day, I couldn't bear it any longer. She held the candle flame close to my eyes, and the stinging pain was unbearable. I remember I tried so hard to endure it, but the gushing liquid just kept streaming down. I hate myself so much, I'm so useless. How could I cry in front of her? Later, I smelled the scent of blood, and my heart suddenly felt glad. So it was blood, after all. Blood is better. Blood is always better than tears. Sometimes when I couldn't bear her abuse any longer, I would tell myself over and over, I must remember this pain. Only by remembering the pain can my hatred for her killing my mother not fade away as I grow up. I'm so afraid. So afraid of forgetting that day, the feeling of my whole body turning cold, the pain so intense I couldn't breathe and retched. I hate my memory. My mother was so good to me, yet I'm gradually starting to forget her face. I must not forget. I will suppress the instinct to let memories fade with age. I want to forever remember my mother's kindness and her face, and also, the hatred from that day. Every time the princess finished tormenting me, I would stay alone in my room, studying and waiting for my wounds to heal. I didn't tell father. Father has his way of revenge, and I have mine. I don't want to rely on anyone. Father is very busy, and he spends less and less time at home. Every time he returns, he brings a group of people to the study to discuss matters. Spring passed and autumn came. I watched the people my father brought home, from minor officials of the 7th rank at first, to high-ranking officials of the 3rd rank later, then to the notorious torturers of the Eastern Depot, and finally to the all-powerful regent. The color of father's official robe was changing too. He became more adept at flattery, yet his eyes grew colder, and his figure more gaunt. My father, who was once reticent and would always become nervous and shy upon seeing my mother, had unwittingly become adept at navigating the treacherous waters of the dark officialdom. If mother were still alive, she would surely be heartbroken and secretly shed tears. She's the kind of person who would fret for a long time over the slightest bump or bruise on her father, knowing that he has now become so thin and gaunt. She would probably lose sleep over it. For years later, the princess was pregnant again. She was overjoyed, and her magnificent carriage returned to the palace with great pride, staying until late at night before coming back. The carriage went out empty but returned laden with gold and silver treasures. She swaggered in proudly, like a peacock in full display. After seeing me studying, she kicked me right in the chest, then grabbed me with disgust, pinching my face between her thumb and forefinger to lift it up. She tightened her grip with a cold expression, as if wishing to strangle me. You really are the spitting image of your wretched mother, just as unbearable to look at. In the past, she tormented me slowly and steadily, but now with this child, she no longer holds back. The maid Bylan beside her stopped her. Princess, her mother delayed your time with the consort. Back then, letting her die so easily was far too merciful. Now, it's better to keep this little wretch alive and torment her slowly, making her atone for her mother's sins on your behalf. The princess loosened her grip on me a little. Bylan leaned close to the princess's ear and whispered, "You are newly pregnant, and the consort has just returned from disaster relief. It's clear he will soon be promoted and granted a higher title. This wretched girl's death is of no consequence. But she must not be allowed to affect your position in the consort's heart. In the future, once you give birth to a son and the consort has an heir, he will surely grow tired of this wretched girl." The princess laughed delightedly, pushed me away, threw me to the ground, and said to me, "I'll let you live a few more days for now. I'll settle the score with you properly later." She carefully caressed her lower abdomen, a shy and contented smile spreading across her face, then left with great fanfare. She had no idea that the child in her womb was not her father's at all. Her father despised her to the point of death. How could he have touched her, on those nights? With the lingering scent of incense in the mansion, whether it was a beggar or a death row inmate from the imperial prison who entered the princess's bedchamber was simply unknown. Father had secretly found the thugs who had raped and murdered mother. They knelt before him, begging for their lives. They told father that the princess had informed them the woman they were to rape and kill was a lowly prostitute, and they could do as they pleased with her. Upon hearing this, father sat dazed for a moment, not even angry. When he came to, he instead burst into hysterical laughter, repeatedly muttering the word lowly until all his strength was spent. He then covered his head, struggled to his knees, gasping for breath, his face already streaked with tears. The next day, in the room next to mother's memorial hall, father skinned those 5 men in front of me and made human skin lanterns. Peeling the first person was done in fits and starts. Father's hands were steady, his gaze fierce and terrifying, the gushing blood splattering onto his face. He was truly terrifying, like a vengeful ghost from hell come to claim a life. But when he looked at me, his eyes held a smile. They were right, father had gone mad. He beckoned to me, asking with a smile if I was afraid. I shook my head and said I wasn't afraid. I am father's child. How could I be afraid? If father has gone mad, how could I possibly be normal? That night, in mother's ancestral hall, 5 strange lanterns appeared hanging from the roof beams. I knew this was only the beginning. Father has truly gone mad. There's no turning back for him. I found some ointment and applied it to the scraped, bleeding spots, then picked up the strategies of the warring states from the floor and continued my studies. Father didn't want me to learn music, chess, calligraphy, painting, needlework, or other feminine arts. Instead, he hired the finest tutors to teach me the 4 books and 5 classics, along with the 6 arts of a gentleman. I understand father's intentions and know what he plans to do. I must not hold him back. What a pity. I am my mother's daughter, yet I inherited none of her kindness and tenderness. Instead, I am just as ruthless and merciless as my father. That night, the princess held a grand banquet at the estate, and father returned very late. The princess happily shared the news of her pregnancy with father. Pei Lang, it's been over 4 months. The imperial physician says there's a 9 out of 10 chance it's a boy. A cryptic smile appeared on father's face. He was very thin, and his features seemed even more sharply defined. Even when father sneers, it can be utterly captivating. Is that so? Father raised his glass to her, smiling as he said, "Congratulations." He laughed and laughed, then burst into hearty laughter. Downing several glasses in a row, the princess's cheeks flushed red, and she was overjoyed. "Are you that happy?" Father scoffed. Naturally, he had drunk a great deal of wine, his steps already unsteady. His fingers gripped the princess's face as he asked with a laugh, "The princess is not yet 20. Yet why does she look so much older?" The smile on the princess's face froze. What she cared about most was her flower-like face, and her father's words struck her like a thunderbolt. "Pei Lang. Am I old?" Her voice trembled, on the verge of tears. Her father released her face and instead grabbed Bai Lan's hand, murmuring drunkenly, "How did I not know the princess had such a fresh and lovely maid by her side?" After saying this, father collapsed onto the table and fell asleep. The princess, enraged, slapped Belian across the face. Belian knelt down, kowtowing repeatedly until her head was bleeding, all the while begging for mercy. The princess ordered someone to bring a mirror. The flesh on both sides of her cheeks trembled with barely contained rage as she stared fixedly at her own reflection, examining it from left to right, then grabbed Belian's face and stared at her just as intently. In a chilling voice, she asked the person beside her, "Am I more beautiful, or is this wretch?" A vast crowd knelt down in unison. "Of course, the princess is more beautiful," she laughed, but the smile didn't reach her eyes, her face twisting with venomous resentment. "Since the consort praised you for being fresh and dewy, then you may throw yourself into the well. Someone as fresh and dewy as you deserves to be drowned in water. What do you all think?" Bailan was the maid who had served her since childhood. Those kneeling on the ground hurriedly pleaded for her, and for themselves. If even a trusted palace maid like Bailan could be sentenced to death on the consort's mere word, what chance of survival would they have if they were ever implicated with the consort in the future? The princess was in a fit of rage, and upon hearing the plea, her expression twisted even more. "I am the princess, and she is nothing but a lowly servant, even if she has served me for years. A servant will always be a servant. How dare she speak of sentiment with me? Masters will always be masters, and slaves will always be slaves. Drag her away, throw her into the well." She went mad. Smashing the mirror held by the palace maids, Bailan collapsed to the ground in despair. Who could have imagined that just a quarter of an hour ago, she had been the princess's trusted confidant, so full of glory and favor? Bailan died. The next day, when father woke up, the servants came to report that her body had been soaking in the well until it turned pale. Father sighed with an unreadable expression. "What a pity." Unfortunately, this remark reached the princess's ears, and once again, she was provoked into a fit of madness, smashing many things and pointing at the slightly attractive maids in the room, calling them seductresses. The next day, an additional human skin lantern appeared in my mother's ancestral hall. That palace maid named Bailan had once been the princess's pawn in bullying my mother, leading others to throw things and spit at her, and even hurling veiled insults outside the mansion to tarnish my mother's reputation. My father used someone else's hand to settle the score, demanding this debt from Bailan. You see, wrongdoings always come with a price. The servants in the princess's residence suffered greatly, especially the maids who were even slightly attractive. The princess was suspicious and paranoid all day long. It wasn't until the maids were replaced with a group of plain-looking, stout ones that her temper improved a bit. Father hardly comes home these days. He spends all his time with the eunuch chief of the Eastern Depot, investigating officials for corruption, bribery, and selling official titles, throwing them into prison. The scent of blood on father grew heavier. The princess had not seen her father for half a month and, upon learning he had just raided a brothel, could no longer sit still despite her pregnancy. She smashed the tea set and shouted like a shrew, "Bring Payu back, bring him back." When father returned, the bloodstains on him were not yet wiped clean. A drop of blood had congealed beneath the corner of his eye, and he exuded an alluring, almost demonic aura. The faint, lingering scent of blood hung in the air around him. In such a state, father was even more captivating than when he was clean and pristine. The princess threw herself into father's arms, sobbing, "Peilang, why didn't you come back to see me? I couldn't sleep at night. I was so scared. Do you have another woman outside?" Father deliberately wiped the still wet bloodstains on her face, letting out a low chuckle. "What nonsense are you thinking? Now, father holds immense power at court, serving as the emperor's right-hand man. Even a princess cannot shake his position in the slightest." The princess sniffled, her nose red from crying. "Where have you been? Why haven't you come home for so long? What have you been busy with?" Father smiled charmingly and replied softly, "Busy killing people." The princess was taken aback for a moment, then quickly resumed her indifferent demeanor, complaining with disgust, "Who on earth requires you to handle it personally? Are the torturers in the imperial prison all useless? And it's dirtying your hands." Father stared into her eyes nonchalantly. "Aren't you going to ask me who I killed?" She grew somewhat curious. "Who?" A rare, genuine smile appeared on father's handsome face. "The wife of Censor Li, the sister of Minister Jiang. The remarried wife of Grand Tutor Shui, and Princess Minghua." With every name father spoke, the princess's smile faded a little more. These were all accomplices who had once helped the princess humiliate my mother. The princess's voice trembled. Why kill them?" Father sighed. "Your father, the emperor, is getting older and increasingly obsessed with beauty. These were all official wives who came to pay respects to the empress but ended up being favored by your father through some twist of fate. 2 of them were even pregnant with the imperial heir. I carry out His Majesty's orders, I dare not ask why." Father looked at her leisurely, a flicker of excited delight in his eyes. "Why are you trembling, princess?" She took a deep breath, slowly calming down, and sighed with relief as if having narrowly escaped death. "So it was because of this. I thought it was because," she quickly stopped herself and didn't continue, saying with disgust, "Then they truly deserve to die. How dare they climb into Father Emperor's bed right under Mother Empress's nose? They deserve to die 100 times over, it's just that it dirtied your hands." Father's eyes were full of sarcasm. Indeed, it did. As the year drew to a close, the princess was nearing her due date, a few days before she gave birth. She repeatedly urged her father to set aside his official duties and come home to stay with her. She cried pitifully in her father's arms, and only when he promised her did she break into a smile. But when the day of childbirth arrived, she was in so much pain she could barely stand, nearly fainting. And still her father did not return. Not only did he not return, but there wasn't even a helping hand in the entire house. She curled up on the floor of her chamber, moaning in agony, "Someone come. Someone come." The entire mansion seemed as if it were empty. No one came, only me. Her cries echoed all around. I closed my eyes and walked through the corridor, carefully sensing the sobs in her voice. Feeling unusually delighted, I pushed the door open, my face filled with worried panic. "Princess, what's wrong with you?" Seeing me, she crawled over as if I were a lifeline, grabbed my feet, and said with great difficulty, sweating profusely, "Quick, go call for help," I sobbed. "There's no one left in the mansion, the maids were all newly replaced, and they've all run away." I couldn't stop them. I heard them talking to a man, and that man seemed to have some connection with Bylan, but I couldn't hear clearly. "The guards in the mansion have all been transferred away too. Bylan doesn't have any man. The people in the mansion were arranged by Father. A woman giving birth is like walking through the gates of hell. A single misstep could mean 2 lives lost." When my mother was giving birth to me, my father waited anxiously outside the door, so frantic that he ended up breaking it down. He ignored all taboos, rushed in, and stayed by my mother's bedside. The midwife and the doctor scolded him for a long time, but he didn't say a word, just quietly wiped away his tears. How could he not know the hardships of a woman giving birth? He just wanted the princess to feel the pain. To make her cry, to make her scream. The princess weakly pushed me, telling me to go find Father. I cried and said that Father had been assassinated outside, and his life was uncertain. Her vision went black, and she nearly fainted. That night, she was in pain for 7 or 8 hours, and by the end, she was barely alive. As if about to die, I gently wiped the sweat from her brow. "She must not die." The doctor waiting in the other room came in with the midwife just as she was about to faint. And a new round of screams began. I sat outside the door, watching the sky gradually lighten at the horizon, listening to the baby's loud cries from behind me, and couldn't help but smile silently. It's my turn now. I've waited so long, endured for so long, and finally it's my turn. I suppressed the spasmodic thrill in my throat and resumed my usual harmless, timid, and dull appearance. Father returned 15 days later, when the princess saw his injuries and pale, weak complexion. Her resentment turned into heartache. "Pei Lang, I was nearly killed by that wretched maid Bylan. How are your wounds?" Father said it was nothing, hastily reassured the princess, and then went back to his room to rest. Father's injuries were real. He had just quelled an internal rebellion. The regent had plotted a revolt, and Father joined forces with the imperial guards to suppress it. Although he achieved a great victory, he was wounded. Yet, I sensed a rare vitality in Father. Something he seldom showed. In the past, he was always lifeless, like a walking corpse. It was only later that I understood where that vitality came from. He had crushed the rebellious prince's plot, and now he held most of the military power within the court. Many of the court officials were his loyal followers. Cultivated over the past 5 years, Father was overjoyed that his painstaking efforts and years of planning were finally about to succeed. After resting for a few days, Father had mostly recovered and came to visit the princess. He deliberately sat by the princess's bedside, gently feeding her soup and telling her amusing jokes to lift her spirits. Just as the atmosphere was pleasant, Father covered his nose, frowned in disgust, and leaned back. "Why is there such a fishy, foul smell?" The princess's face turned pale, then flushed red. She stared blankly at Father, instinctively clutching the blanket tightly. "Your wounds haven't fully healed yet. You should go back and rest early." Father pretended not to hear the reluctance and pain in her words, nodded in agreement, then stood up and left. As soon as he stepped out, the sound of the princess crying came from inside the room. Father coldly curled the corner of his mouth and turned toward the study. Father knew exactly how to hurt a woman, just as he knew how to love one. Mother once told me that father used to cry a lot when she was in confinement after childbirth. He would change her menstrual cloths and secretly wipe away tears while taking them out to wash. That evening, her father wiped her body while turning her over, crying and telling her they wouldn't have any more children, never again. If he had known childbirth was this agonizing, he would never have let her go through it. Mother said he was being childish, but father was anything but childish. During mother's postpartum confinement, he hardly slept a wink, taking care of both me and mother. Brewing soups and cooking to nourish her, and washing my diapers. Mother grew much fuller during her confinement, while father looked as if he had been through a prison ordeal, yet he foolishly kept smiling with joy. He had been tirelessly attending to his mother day and night, handling every detail with meticulous care for so long, and understood the matters of the postpartum period better than anyone. He deliberately said those words to torment the princess. He knew the princess came from a noble background, which was precisely why he wanted to trample on her dignity, to drive her mad, to make her suffer, to humiliate her. When his mother died, she was 2 months pregnant with a child, its gender unknown. The princess had once threatened his mother, saying this child would not live past 3 months. Well, 3 months, 2 months later, the princess had finished her postpartum confinement and returned to her lively and annoying self. She sent invitations to all the prominent officials in the capital and held a grand banquet at her residence to celebrate her son being named the heir. After my father quelled the rebellion, he was enfeoffed as a prince by His Majesty. Now that he holds military power, father truly wields immense authority. The princess basks in the compliments and congratulations from the officials' families. She intends to reclaim all the congratulations and attention she missed on her wedding day. Taking it all back today, the princess truly has an eye for talent. The top scholar is bound to have a limitless future. No wonder the princess insisted on marrying him back then. She must have known the prince would become a powerful minister someday. The princess straightened her back, lifted her head, and smiled proudly. After the palace examination, the imperial astronomers and the state preceptor both prophesied that Pei would become a powerful minister above all others, leaving a lasting legacy in history and earning the admiration of countless generations. Such an exceptional talent naturally deserves someone like me. That wretched woman should take a good look at herself. What is she, anyway? Besides, among all the men in the capital, who could possibly be more handsome than my husband? 100 years from now, my name will be forever tied to his, and future generations will praise us together. We are truly a perfect match, made for each other. The surrounding voices of agreement rose and fell in waves. Hidden behind a pillar, I sat on the ground, my entire body cold and numb. So, all this grand, forceful effort to drive my mother to her death and prevent my father from resigning was all because of a prophecy. Such an ethereal prophecy actually cost my mother her life, and drove my father completely mad, leaving him neither human nor ghost from then on. So it was just a prophecy after all. I don't know whether to cry or laugh. Only feeling absurd. I wonder, if the princess's words just now were to reach my father's ears, whether he would cry or laugh as well. Father is probably going to go even more insane. Halfway through the banquet, the cradle beside the princess, where the child was lying, suddenly broke, the basket tipped over, and the child fell to the ground, rolling down the steps. Screams erupted all around until the child tumbled into the lake, just as triumphant as the princess had been a moment before. She was now utterly broken and desperate. Her screams pierced the sky. I stepped out from behind the pillar, watching every shift in her expression. I watched her overlap with the image of myself when my mother passed away all those years ago. Her face, pale and twisted in agony, was just like mine had been. Her wailing cries were the same, and even the way she stumbled and fell to the ground in disarray was identical to how I had been. Who says there's no such thing as shared suffering in this world? Look, isn't she sharing my pain now? My pain of losing a mother, her pain of losing a son. She took my mother's life on my birthday, so I took her son's life on the day of her greatest joy. It was just under 3 months. A life for the unborn child in my mother's womb. She must suffer as I did, only then would it be repayment. I suddenly understood my father. What good is it to kill someone outright? For someone like the princess, so high and mighty, treating human lives as worthless, she ought to live on well, and slowly taste the pain she so casually inflicted on others with her laughter and chatter. Only then would she know what it means to regret when it's too late. The princess's mental state is very poor. She hasn't been quite right since the child died. She shut herself in her room, walking around barefoot while clutching a pillow. Only when she sees her father does she calm down. Her father feeds her, and as she eats, she starts to cry uncontrollably, apologizing to him. She said she borrowed the cradle because she wanted to share in the blessings of the eldest princess's legitimate son, unaware that it had already been hollowed out by insects. Father comforted her, saying it was all right, that there would always be more children. She cried her heart out, finally collapsing onto her father and sobbing, "Pei Lang, the first time I saw you was when you had just topped the imperial examination. You rode through the streets on horseback, proud and elated. My cousin had come in second, and he invited you to a tavern for a meal, but you said you had to go home to make soup for your wife, because she would be scared if she woke from her nap and didn't see you. My cousin told me this as a joke, but I took it to heart. That night, I dreamed that I was your wife. You made soup for me, coaxed me to sleep, painted my eyebrows by the west window, and played literary games with me over tea. I wished I could have died in that dream and never woken up. My mother is the legitimate daughter of a noble family, raised from childhood to be dignified and magnanimous. After she entered the palace, she became the empress. She had only me, a daughter, and she wasn't as skilled at pleasing the emperor as his other consorts. As the nation's mother, everyone told her to be tolerant and generous, not to be jealous. So she just watched her husband spend night after night in other women's beds, and all she could do was hold me and cry by the bedside. She cried and cried until it made me so annoyed. Back then, I swore that I would find the very best husband, one who would treat me well, dote on me, and belong to me alone for a lifetime. I didn't want to be a failure like my mother, a loser who always gave way. There are many children under my father's knee, and new ones come out every year. By the time I was 8, my father couldn't even remember my name. I lived in the palace, and my mother was like a bodhisattva. She didn't know how to fight, didn't know how to be ruthless. All she knew was how to wait. She simply didn't understand that the things she wanted had to be fought for. My father's favor had to be seized. Without fighting, there would be no dignity as a princess. The sisters and brothers in the palace were all enemies disguised by blood ties. We fought each other only to defend our own interests, only to survive, to live as a princess and a master should. I know you resent me, but Pei Lang, I truly admire you. My own mother's love life is a complete mess. What could she possibly teach me? All these years, the struggles within the palace have only taught me to seize what I want. You are the one I have set my eyes on. I am the princess, so you should be mine, shouldn't you? I drugged you just to make you obediently submit to me. That Yaonyang, she is not worthy of you. The imperial astronomer also said that we are the most well-matched. How could someone as lowly as her be fit for a top scholar like you, so full of learning? She is too unclear about her own status. Those who are unclear about their status do not last long in the palace or in the capital. Masters are masters, and those below masters are not even human. Their lives are not as precious as our cats and dogs. Pei Lang, it is you who are disobedient. You are too stubborn. You should not have refused me. I am the princess. I am your master, Pei Lang. Don't hate me, love me instead, won't you? Let's have another child. I'll definitely give you an heir. Don't take a concubine. I'm still young. I'm the most beautiful woman in Chang'an. None of them are as lovely as I am. She babbled incoherently, cupping father's face as she muttered to herself. Father's hands were hidden in his sleeves, his fingers trembling uncontrollably. Father was suppressing his urge to strangle her to death. Father exerted great effort to suppress the surging hatred in his heart. His eyes were gentle, and a soft smile played on his lips. All right, we'll have another child. I won't take a concubine. How could I ever take a concubine? The smile at the corners of his lips deepened. He lifted the princess's face and said slowly, "Indeed, the princess is the most beautiful woman in Chang'an. In the past, you loved this face the most. No one is more beautiful than you." With father's attentive care, the princess's health improved significantly. Half a year later, she was pregnant again. After this pregnancy, the princess became much more restrained. She no longer went out but stayed quietly in her room, often lost in thought while caressing her belly. The imperial physician once whispered to father that the princess's mental state was no longer normal and she must not be provoked any further. If she were to be provoked again, I fear no medicine could cure her, and she would descend into complete madness. After seeing the physician off, father pushed open the study window and let out a scornful, mocking laugh. When the child in her womb reached 6 months, red stretch marks suddenly appeared all over the princess's belly overnight, leaving her terrified and fearful. But this time, father didn't deliberately treat her harshly as before. Instead, He coaxed her gently and even took out a box of ointment for her. "Apply this and the swelling will go down. Don't cry," father carefully soothed her, all just to help her regain her spirits so she could endure his most devastating blow. Father intended to destroy everything she cherished and cared about, just as she had done back then. The princess applied the medicine, and the marks on her stomach gradually faded. But her joy was short-lived, as her once admired lotus-like face began to rot, bit by bit. It wasn't a sudden, widespread decay, but a slow, relentless progression, a little more each day, subtle yet deadly. The princess went mad. Her face was what she cared about most. At the same time, father gathered his troops and forced his way into the palace. The princess locked herself in her room, refusing to see anyone, so she had no idea what was happening outside. She didn't know her parents and brothers had already been imprisoned in the imperial jail. Didn't know that the schemes her father had plotted for years were about to come to fruition. Didn't know she was about to die. When father returned to the mansion to see the princess again, her face had already rotted away. What was once a peerless beauty was now nothing but pitted, decaying flesh, with eyeballs hanging loosely, a horrifying and terrifying sight. Father, however, was neither afraid nor concerned. Not only that, he even laughed appreciatively, and when he grew tired from laughing, he sat back in the armchair beside him, panting. The princess, upon seeing the dragon robe on father, understood instantly. She prostrated herself on the ground, crawling to his feet, wanting to speak but only managing to sob incoherently. Father lifted her chin with his foot disdainfully and smiled. "That medicine doesn't just rot your face, your tongue and liver will slowly rot too. It's agonizing, isn't it? But you won't die. You'll have to wait for death slowly. You can't die too quickly, or I won't be pleased." The princess wept, her appearance quite frightening. Yet father looked at her as if admiring a pleasing painting. "Back when you took a knife to scar Yaonyang's face, what did I tell you? I said that one day, I would ruin this face of yours. You didn't believe me then, and even laughed, saying I couldn't bear to do it, that this face of yours was the most beautiful in Chang'an." The smile at the corner of father's lips froze. He lowered his leg, leaned down, and met the princess's gaze. "I only feel disgusted, whether back then or now. This face of yours fills me with loathing and revulsion. How dare you compare yourself to my Yaonyang? My Yaonyang is kind and pure at heart, countless times more beautiful than you. How could you ever be worthy of comparing to her?" Father stood up. The guards outside entered and lifted the despairing princess, who awaited death. Father was in quite a good mood. "Don't worry, you won't die so quickly. Your parents will die before you. I will skin them right before your eyes. My technique is excellent now, very smooth. When it's your turn, you'll see." The princess couldn't help but tremble. She kept saying her mother was magnanimous and tolerant, yet for her own happiness, she deceitfully lured my mother into the palace, intending to drown her. The emperor was even more indulgent. After my mother narrowly escaped death, he actually offered her poisoned wine. If my father hadn't snatched it to drink and been stopped by the princess, both my father and mother would likely have died long ago. My father looked at the beautiful weather outside, overjoyed. He circled around the princess, clapping his hands as he walked, his eyes wild with madness. "You must die slowly. Wait until I have Yaonyang crowned as empress and entered into the ancestral temple before you die. I want all you hypocrites, you beasts and villains, to watch my Yaonyang reign for generations. Weren't you all looking down on her? I want you all to kneel before her. I want all you who boast of your noble birth to kneel at my Yaonyang's feet and kowtow, to look up to her for the rest of your lives." Father looked at her swollen belly with a half-smile. "Every child you've carried is not mine. The one who drank the poison you slipped that day wasn't me either. Since then, I haven't laid a finger on you in this mansion. Weren't you so proud of your nobility? How did it feel with those beggars and death row convicts?" The princess, despite her feeble state, suddenly mustered a surge of strength, but before her hand could reach father, she was restrained. All she could manage were hoarse, muffled whimpers, unable to utter another sound. She was imprisoned in the imperial prison. After the Ministry of Rights finished dealing with her mother's affairs, her father came to the prison to settle the final accounts. The princess fainted upon seeing her parents skinned and was then revived by having water splashed on her. She can no longer move now, no different from a living corpse. Her body has completely rotted away inside. The guards on both sides held her down. She tried to flee in terror but couldn't move. The blade in her father's hand cut through her skin. Others are skinned after they die. But you're different. You must be alive, only then will the beauty lantern look beautiful. The lanterns made from your parents are already hanging in Yaonyang's ancestral hall. There are 23 lanterns there now. And you're the only one missing. I saved you for last so that my Yaonyang may rest in peace. You must suffer. If you die too comfortably, Yaonyang would not be at ease. The faint sound of flesh tearing apart echoed in the air, the scent of blood growing increasingly thick, until only a mess of gore remained on the ground. Father shook the blood off his fingers, staggered a couple of steps, laughed heartily, but then wept as he laughed. He leaned over the railing, retching, but nothing came up, and in the end, he vomited a mouthful of blood. It turns out that Father also found the act of flaying repulsive. It seems that even in revenge, Father found no joy. Yes, he got his revenge, but the people he cared about were long gone, so how could he be happy? The brightest lantern was hung before my mother's memorial tablet. Father seemed to have changed overnight, devoting all his energy to teaching me the ways of a ruler. Father spent 4 years purging the remnants of the old empress faction and corrupt officials from the court, then named me imperial princess and abdicated the throne in my favor. Just like that day, he crouched in front of me, placing his hands on my shoulders. You must be a good empress. Make sure your mother remains honored in the ancestral temple forever. Receiving the worship and incense offerings from all these people. Understand? Okay, I replied. He wanted to pat my head like he did when I was a child, but in the end, his hand dropped. Father is sorry for you. Father doesn't ask for your forgiveness. Father is not a good father. In this life, Father could only take care of your mother and couldn't look after you. In the next life, Father will repay you even as an ox or a horse. I wanted to tell him, Father, I love you and Mother. I've never blamed you, but I didn't say it out loud. For many years after, I kept wondering why I hadn't spoken those words that day. Why? Father returned to his former residence and settled in Mother's memorial hall. He rarely met with me. Even when I went to see him, he seldom agreed to see me. It wasn't until one day when he vomited blood non-stop and collapsed in the mansion that I learned he had been taking the 5 minerals powder daily. I rode over to see him. He was lying on the floor of the ancestral hall, his robes open, his whole body flushed with fever. He lay on the ground holding his mother's memorial tablet, weeping as he carefully kissed the name inscribed on it. The imperial physician said he didn't have many days left to live. He waved at me, seemingly still not fully conscious, and asked, "Do you know Yaonyang?" A wave of bitterness welled up in my heart. He continued, muttering to himself, half-crazed. Crying and laughing at once, "She saved me. I was copying books for the son of Squire Wang and made a mistake in a character, violating a taboo. The squire's son and his servants beat me. It was Yaonyang who stopped them and even used her handkerchief to bandage my wound. I asked her who she was, and she said she was a singer who performed at Squire Wang's residence. She hoped a respectable scholar like me wouldn't disdain a handkerchief from someone like her." He murmured, his eyes vacant. "What kind of person is Yaonyang?" "I don't know. I only know she saved me, and I wanted to return her handkerchief. When I saw her again, she was covered in injuries and about to hang herself. She had fallen into the world of pleasure, sold by her parents to a brothel. She was an even more unfortunate soul than I. She saved me once, and I wanted to save her once too. She gave me all her savings, asking me to redeem her freedom. Once redeemed, she would be mine. The contract stated I could buy or sell her, but how could I ever do such a thing? She had nowhere else to go, so she had to stay with me. We treated each other with mutual respect and courtesy. She forbade me from copying books for a living anymore. She said she would give me all the savings she had left and asked if I could strive to become the top scholar in the imperial exams. She was willing to be my concubine or even my maid. She asked with trepidation, but what I thought was, what concubine? What maid? Yaonyang funded my studies, cooked for me, and even bore me a daughter. Of course, I would make her my wife, my legitimate wife, my only wife. She was my humble, devoted wife during my most destitute times, and I must treat her well and never let her down. How could she be a concubine? How could I ever have a concubine? Father never told me about these past events. I only remember that year when I was 5, the princess took a fancy to Father and asked him, "Have you really never once looked down on Yaonyang for being a prostitute?" Father was furious, driven to the brink by the princess's pestering, and cursed, "Look down on her. Why would I look down on a benefactor who married me at my lowest point? What is chastity even worth? That word shouldn't exist. It's bullshit." Yaonyang had no choice. It was the fault of this world, not hers. What wrong did she commit? Her only mistake was being born a woman. Sold by her parents for 10 copper coins into a brothel. Yaonyang's heart is purer than all of yours, purer than all the hypocritical beasts in this world. Yaonyang's chastity lies in her will, never in the prejudices of the world. I love Yaonyang, no matter what. I cherish her. I won't look down on her, I only look down on you. I snapped out of my memories and watched as father suddenly scrambled up from the ground. He pushed me away, stumbling forward. Then grabbed the scissors from the table and slashed his own face with force. Blood splattered everywhere, yet he murmured with eerie certainty, as if feeling no pain, "It's this face's fault, all this face's fault." I was horrified, frozen in terror, and rushed to grab him. But he clung to mother's memorial tablet and huddled in the corner, sobbing uncontrollably, blood and tears mixed together as he trembled, gasping for breath. "Nian, I've disfigured myself. What if Yaonyang doesn't like me anymore down there? What if she doesn't like me?" The third princess died, and with her went the last breath of life in father. Hatred was all that had kept him going on this path. Now that the hatred is gone, how can he continue on? He appears calm, but in reality, he has long gone mad. He has endured for so many years and can no longer bear it. He has broken down countless times in his heart, yet I cannot fathom the collapse within him. Go find a physician. Quickly, I couldn't hold back my tears as I walked over to father, grabbing his hand and coaxing him gently. "Father, you're hurt. Let me take you to get bandaged up." "All right." He tilted his head and looked at me, staring for a long time before suddenly breaking into a smile. "It's Nian." He grabbed my hand, his dark eyes sparkling with a purity that didn't match his age. He laughed happily. "Nian, your mother will be back soon from buying groceries. Let's go pick some lotus flowers for her, your mother loves them the most. Come on, Nian, let's go pick lotus flowers." He pulled me along as he ran outside, and I broke down in tears. "Oh heavens, I beg you, I truly beg you, if there really is a next life, please let Pei Yu and Shenyaro live together peacefully for a lifetime. Take my life in exchange. Take this lifetime of mine. Let me die early. Let me die a miserable death. Let my end be as wretched as it can be. I only ask that you let them be together happily in their next life. Even if it means I die right now, I would gladly accept it." Father died one afternoon, right outside mother's ancestral hall, as if he didn't dare to enter. Father was afraid his disfigured face would frighten mother, and he feared the blood on his hands would taint her presence. He was so foolish, mother would never have blamed him. I buried them together. On the way back, the newly entered royal consort asked me, "Your Majesty, which characters make up your name?" I paused for a moment, enunciating each word slowly. "Pei Nian, the yarrow from the modest, retiring, and virtuous maiden. For our prince a good mate she makes." The end.